And good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Patriot Pulse podcast and simulcasting to Two Guys Drinking Coffee. It is Wednesday, November 5th, 2025, and this is episode 30. If you're following us on the Patriot Pulse, and episode 233, if you're still watching us on Two Guys Drinking Coffee. So, welcome. And this is everybody knows, I'm sure, the day after the November election, and we're seeing the results come in. And it was a little surprising to me. And as a matter of fact, it caught. I had to send some last minute notes to Fred because we were all prepared to talk about my title for today was going to be "Let's chat about all things global." We are the black and red ants killing each other while their plan continues. Well, that was my title. It was a little surprising to me. Well, I just heard some feedback. I don't know what's going on.
That was me.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that.
All right. So, Fred, good morning. How are you doing?
Doing pretty good. Just done. That's all. Just done.
I know. So based on the election results from yesterday, we're kind of preempting our podcast, our scheduled topic a little bit, but it actually plays right into it because I think what we saw in this election is kind of a microcosm of what we're seeing globally, nationally. It certainly lends itself to what's going on with the whole globalist movement. So, if you'll indulge me, I am still going to go through my monologue that I had prepared from looking at things from a globalist point of view. But then, before I get into those topics, we definitely have to talk about the election and what's going on, not only in Pennsylvania but across the country. So, anyways, if you'll indulge me here a little bit, we want to talk about unwrapping the globalists and their nefarious agenda. And I said this at the very beginning in the title, while we're busy being distracted by red versus blue, conservative versus liberals, while are being distracted by we're distracted every single day by something new. The globalists are carrying out their plans, and you can look no further than New York City to see that the globalists. And the other thing, the globalists have a long game plan, and they're very patient and determined. They're going to get their way if we can't stop them. We've been hearing about globalists and their intentions for creating a one world government with central control. You think CBDCs, you think social credit scores, you think like the UK, where if you don't take or don't buy into the digital ID, you can't work. Well, that's all part of their agenda. Everyone has heard of, and most grew up thinking, for example, the UN, the United Nations, was an organization that was meant for good. That was the beginning of the globalists. And I'll get into this when we talk about some of the topics if we get time. But by now, most everyone has heard of other globalist organizations. We've talked for 4 years about the WEF, World Economic Forum, the WHO, World Health Organization, the IMF, International Monetary Fund, and how about the World Bank, which the central banks are all part of, and the WTO, the World Trade Organization. All these are globalist organizations that are literally taking over the world, and we seem to just be able to just sit back and watch them do it. And anyway, going even further, we talk about NGOs and other organizations. How about some may not have heard of the Bilderberg Group, the Trilateral Commission, although we've talked about both on this podcast before. Council on Foreign Relations. This is something that many of our elected officials have been either part of right now or have been part of. NGOs like the Open Society Foundation, which is George Soros and all their sub organizations, Bill and Melinda Gates, We know what that is. That's depopulation. But there's other ones. You know, in the globalist movement didn't start with Agenda 21 or Agenda 30, but goes back to a period around World War II. And it was a deliberate, I guess the best way to say it, this was a deliberate, elite driven push to erode national sovereignty. Okay, i.e., we're no longer Americans, we're part of the globalists. Dissolve borders. When did we see that recently? Is, you know, when Biden, the illegal Biden administration was in office, and centralized power in supranational institutions, WEF, WHO. You know, they'll swear that they're just an advisory, but no, they're putting out edicts. So it didn't start just recently. It goes back to World War II and before. So that's why I'm saying this is all. They're very patient, and they, you know, where we think a year in advance, or we were talking off camera here, we think, okay, we got to get prepared for the midterm election. Hell, they're thinking 20 years, 30 years, 40 years in the future.
Exactly.
We don't. We think in the now. And that's where I think part of our problem lies, is that we don't plan like they do to stop them. So, you know, you can look at all those things. You could look at, for example, the League of Nations in 1919, which was a precursor to the United Nations. Conservatives back then, like Henry Cabot Lodge, tried to block the U.S. entry into the United Nations or into the League of Nations. I can't remember when he was involved, but I remember his name. But he was for our strong sovereignty for this country. And look what's happened in the time since him. We've gone from a very conservative, very pro-American, to electing to the people of New York City. I thank God I wasn't part of that, but the people of New York City electing a Muslim communist. He calls himself a socialist, but he's a freaking communist in disguise.
Yes.
So we've gone. I mean, is this? I don't know, Fred. Do you think this is this kind of playing out the book of Revelation right in front of our eyes?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I just think that I think part of me thinks that this whole dredging out of the SNAP and the welfare thing was a strategy to get people mad. And a lot of people didn't even bother to vote, because I talked to people and they didn't even know the vote was going on.
Yeah.
Now, it's one thing about this area. We do a horrible job of letting people know there's an election coming up. And then they find out, yes, they get little pamphlets and you see little things here and there. But as far as letting people know it's election day, people are blind to it.
I got it. Go ahead and I got to check this out. I'm going to put this up. Just, Tom, I don't know what the hell's going on with our Patriot Pulse page. I'm going to it right now to see if there's crap coming on it, like you say. I mean, obviously we're not posting this stuff on there. I'm looking at the Patriot Pulse page right now, and I don't see anything like that, Tom. So it might be coming in on your feed somehow, and just popping into. Yeah, I'm scrolling way down through there. There's nothing like that on our Patriot Pulse page. So I don't know what's going on, Tom. I can't explain it, but I do know that Facebook screws with us all the time, which I didn't do my little housekeeping at the beginning where I normally say, you know, click like, share, and all that other stuff for all the places you find us to help us overcome the algorithms. But you know, here's another good thing or another interesting thing. Oh, it is live. I thought we got kicked off of X, but if you're watching us on X right now, we are live on there. So anyways, get back to our discussion. I got I got sidetracked there for a minute. But hey, well, they'll give me a chance to give a shout out to thank you for everybody that's joining us. We got Diane and Jim on there. Tom, of course. Mick is joining us today. Harold is on there with us. And Kelly from Warren. Hi, Kelly. How you doing? But thank you all for joining us. And I'm sure there's 11 are watching, but those are just the few that made comments so far. So for anybody that's watching us, we appreciate you being here. So let's get back. I'll skip the rest of my monologue here because I want to get into this election, because for today, our focus is on the more recent activities, which I think this election is an indication of. Let's put it that way.
Eye-opening.
Yeah, because quite frankly, and excuse my language, but the Republicans and the conservatives had their ass handed to them in this election.
Absolutely.
There's no other way to say it. We lost, because I'm a conservative Republican, we lost every freaking election that we were working on.
Everyone.
I take that back. In the county, we had a bunch of Republicans that were running unopposed. McKean County is a pretty conservative county. So Republicans, for the most part, run opposed here. So I can't count county into that, McKean County. But statewide and nationally, it didn't go well for us. Excuse me, I got to take a drink of my coffee. I need caffeine for this morning. When I got this, well, go ahead, Fred.
I said this is an eye opener. So we got to start doing things different than we used to. You have your standard little Republican meetings, and we do it at certain times. We need to do it at times where we can get the most people involved, because what we're doing is not working. And I have this theory: if it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, what we're doing is broken, and we're not fixing it.
Yeah, good point. Kelly made a good comment here, because this is true. Chester County, PA, evidently they had some issues with their voting machines. And as a matter of fact, they went and somebody in the county made the decision to keep the polls open till 10 because of the problems they had with the voting machines. So, people have my phone. I'll be honest with you, since I got up this morning, as soon as I got up, started and looked at the phone, it's been blowing up all morning. People texting me, and some people saying, "Oh, it was rigged," blah blah blah. Well, I don't know. I don't trust the voting machines any farther than I can throw them. I think they could probably be hacked by a high schooler. So and that goes for quite frankly, the write-in, or when you do a mail-in ballot, or whether you go over to the courthouse like I did and vote early. My wife and I went over there. We filled our mail-in ballot and turned it in that day. But all of those paper ballots have to go through an electronic scanner. So anything can be hacked. So I don't know. People, if you commented that you think there was some hacking done or shenanigans or whatever you want to call it, possibility, but I'll tell you what, it wasn't a close race for any of those. We got trounced. So I don't know if that means that, the election was rigged or not, but we lost regardless. So anyways, let me take I need another caffeine shot here. Tom, I'm sure you'll appreciate that, my friend. As a matter of fact, I don't normally drink coffee anymore on the podcast, because we're not at the restaurant, so I don't have a waitress constantly keeping my cup filled. But I asked my wife, here you go. I asked my wife to put me a percolator full of coffee, and I brewed it up here on my desk. So I've got my caffeine in front of me today, and I needed it. So anyways, let's talk about how the Republicans got their asses handed to them. One of the things I think, and Fred, jump in here wherever you want to, and everybody else, if you got opinions on this, please feel free to share them on the comments, because I'll post them up there. But low turnout.
Low.
Low turnout doesn't favor Republicans, conservative Republicans. It just doesn't. Maria Batista, I helped her with her campaign quite a bit, as a matter of fact, this election. And she was telling me that in order for her campaign to be successful, they needed a Republican turnout somewhere in the high 40s to low 50%. And you would think that would be,
Easy.
half the Republicans get out to vote. That's easy. No, it's not easy. I think our turnout in McKean County, and I think that's kind of reflective of the whole state, was only about 30 to 35%.
Right.
Well, she predicted it. If it gets in that low of area, there's no way she could win. And that would go for Matt Wolford too. And it probably extends to the whole thing with the judges.
Right.
So what was the reason for the low turnout? What do you think?
I'm telling you, I talked to a lot of people who said they didn't even know there was an election going on, which is kind of sad.
How in the hell can you not? All right, I gotta ask this question, Fred. I don't know who you were talking to, but unless you live under a freaking rock, how can you not know that every year in November there is an election?
Because they're stuck under the rock. I mean, I went and voted early, and I put that I voted on my shirt so that every customer that looked at me, I could say, go vote, go vote, go vote. And I did. And some of them were like, well, I don't even know anything about what's going on. I don't even know anything about the people.
Yeah.
In the voting. Really?
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people called me or texted me asking about the home rule question in the city of Bradford. And this, it's been going on. We've been talking about it a lot, but that's just to go along with what you're saying there. I don't know if we, as a party, I look at it from McKean County, we as a committee, we didn't do a good enough job talking to people or getting the word out, or are people just so asleep and in their own world that if it's not on CNN or NBC News or CBS, they don't pay attention to it.
And I can tell you, I got a good example of why we're asleep at the wheel. I'll give you a good example. The liberals could organize a protest against a random person that just got arrested by ICE. There would be 10,000 people in random cities all protesting it. You could ask people to come out and stand up for family values. You might get the size of a small church to actually protest.
Yeah. Fran just made a point about just our area here, just in the Bradford area, calling it apathy. But Fran, I think you're right, but I think that could go much further. I think you could make that claim nationally. I don't think that's just our town. Kelly, I don't know how it was over in Warren County. Was it a low turnout? I don't know. I don't know what other counties we got represented here. Most everybody that's making comments is in our area, but I don't know. Tom, down in I can't think of what county Penfield's in, but I don't know how did that work down there. Tell us, put it in the comments. What's been going on? Mick has a point here. People are just giving up. The more they talk about the cheating going on, people think that there's no use in voting. That's entirely possible. I'll tell you what, that also, let me give you a thought that I mentioned. My wife and I were having a conversation about this. Could it be, and I'm just throwing this out here for supposition anyway, are people still, one of two things are happening. They're still riding on the wave of Trump, getting the landslide victory in November and thinking they don't have to do anything because their knight in shining armor rode in on a white horse and he's saving the day. So I don't have to do anything. That could be one scenario. Mm-hmm. The other scenario, and feel free to argue with me if you want on this. It's a free country, and this is an open podcast. All opinions are welcome. But even though Trump has done some good things, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think he's done some really good things. Closing the border is one of them. But there are a lot of, if you talk to the people in Bradford that are going to either Walmart or Tops Market or one of the other markets, buying their groceries, they aren't seeing prices go down. As a matter of fact, you're gonna see prices going up by 5, 10, 15% every week. In Bradford, our gas is still $3.50 something a gallon, when I can drive 12 miles to Vandalia, New York, and buy it for $2.61.
Exactly.
So,
and I wanted to say something there. Jim says we need to get back to the constitutional thing, but that's all well and good. But if you're only going to get 35% people showing up to vote, you ain't going to get back to the Constitution. You're going to get more. You're going to get more crazy people than you think. You need people to show up to vote and just do their patriotic duty to even vote, man. How do you think we're going to get back to constitutional if they won't even vote?
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. An excellent point, Fred. Is that if you're going to beat the drum of the Constitution, and I agree with that. Everybody should be doing that. But it's just like I told Fred off camera. When we have a McKean County Republican committee, we're going rah, rah, rah within our committee. We got 30, 40 people in there, but there's, 30,000, 40,000 in McKean County, and 300 people aren't doing anything to get the word out.
Right.
So, you could be talking Constitution, we could be the constitutional party, but if we're not talking about it, it's not going to get out there. So let's see what other comments here. Cindy says, we have a family member who says that all the elections are rigged. So why bother voting? I'll tell you what, I struggle with that with my wife, and I'm not going to tell stories on my wife.
I'm not
but
saying it work.
She kind of has that same, pure attitude. And I think the reason she continues to go out and vote is I tell her, listen, yeah, that might be true. It might, but let me put it this way. If we don't vote, then we've already given up, and they get their way by default. At least when we go out and exercise our right and our duty, it's not just a right, it's a duty to vote. At least we're staying in the game.
Right.
If we stop voting, we're out of the game.
Right. And another thing, I didn't say that it wouldn't work. Jim Meshuggah, his comment. I didn't say it wouldn't work. Problem is, as an American citizen, you should just vote out of your obligation to your country. And not to mention, I'll give you a good example. I had a lady in there shopping the other day, and she's all upset because she's having to buy groceries for her daughter and her daughter's husband because they are on food stamps and they can't pay their bills. You know what I told her? Actually, giving is a good thing because blessings come from that. So if everybody learns to give a little, you're going to see good things happen. So don't look at this negatively that you have to help out a family member. I mean, so you got to look, every example you got to take advantage of. I'm not saying that things wouldn't get better if we just preach Constitution. But if those same people you're talking to about Constitution is still sitting in their chair and not voting, you're not going to get anywhere.
Yeah. I'm going to put another comment up here because Jim, I'm going to challenge you here because you said this to me in person when we've had coffee or breakfast together. And I'm going to read it here. You keep saying it won't work, but refuse to try it. What do you have to lose at this point? I want to know how we try it. You've told me in the past that we keep talking about it. We keep bringing up is it constitutional? And we've said that on this podcast. We've called out things that are, or people that aren't voting constitutionally. But how do we take that and create a movement that will impact, elections or impact people that are elected representatives? Do you think Mondomny in New York City is worried about the Constitution? Do you think these governors that just got elected in New Jersey and Virginia, you think they're worried about the Constitution? Hell no. They're leftists. So let me just see what Jim has to say here. The county, let's see here, sends a packet over. In our packet, they forgot to go vote here signs. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, let me go back to my notes because I'm getting way off track here. So, anyways, let me ask an interesting question, Fred, because I know you look at the whole Muslim situation very closely. So let me ask you this: are Muslims using the leftist / socialists to advance their ideology, or do you think it's the other? Or do you think it's the other way around? Are the leftist / socialist / globalists using the Muslims, to advance their global ideology, and when the Muslims have taken over, they'll crack down on them and then just take over everything? Excuse me. What do you think about that?
It's an interesting perspective. I see what you're trying to say here, but I really think the Muslims are taking advantage of the sympathy of woke people to get in power. That's what I think is really happening. Woke people are sympathetic to everything, and it's the ideal situation for the Muslims, because guess what? They incorporate everything into their religion anyway to a certain degree. But except for walk into one of the churches dressed as a woman if you're a man and see what happens.
Here's another good here's a comment by Tom. How are people not voting constitutionally? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Are they voting? All right, here, let's take Mondomny for just an example. Are people voting with their feelings instead of their intellect?
Yeah.
In other words, if Mondomny is saying all the things that they want to hear, not the truth necessarily, but what does it say in the Bible about tickling their ears? Jim, you're the Bible scholar here. I'm going to depend on you to put that up there, but people want to hear what tickles their ears.
Exactly.
And Mondomny could be the most unconstitutional person in the world, but they get all excited because he says the things they want to hear. So anyway,
tickling the ears started with Adam and Eve. He tickled their ears to get what he wanted, didn't he?
Yeah. Well, I don't know which one you said here, but Jim obviously agrees with you, Fred. So, Christy, I don't know what you mean. It's the other way around, I think. Which other way around? I'm not sure what you're referring to there. And Tom, again, total near apathy. The biggest one being my vote doesn't count. Yeah. Well, if you're, let me put it this way. Let me put it this way. If you think if you're using that as an excuse that your vote won't count, well, damn it. If you don't vote, it certainly doesn't count. There's a guarantee, an absolute guarantee that your vote doesn't count because you didn't cast it. So when people tell me that, I call bullshit on that one. And excuse my language, but I've had a lot of caffeine this morning.
You've already given up once you say that your vote doesn't count.
I got to warm my coffee up. Fred, talk.
I said you've already given up the moment you say my vote doesn't count, so why should I even vote? So, but that's exactly what they want, because once you give up, it's over.
Yeah. So let's see what Fran has to say. Both the globalists will do anything to achieve their goals, exactly, and they don't care how long it takes. And I'll tell you what, Great Britain in general, the Muslims, I haven't just got a foothold there. They're taking over. They really are. And you can't say it's not this country, is he? Look at across the country, how many Muslim mayors, representatives, in Congress, there again, I'm going to ask the question. Is it the globalists using the Muslims, or is it the Muslims, using the globalists? I don't know, to achieve their agenda. So let me see what other comments we have here. Well, yeah, Alex, Alex Soros, George Soros' son, they had a picture of him with Mondamni. Well, that goes without saying. I mean, they're all in the same, the same ball game there. They all want the same thing, and it's to tear down this country. Yeah. Charlie says, he thinks that those who suffered and died in this country to preserve it. People don't think about that, Charlie. I got to tell you, they really don't. Okay, all right. So Jim came up with an answer to my question there. 2 Timothy 4 verses 3 and 4. The passage states, "For the time will come when people will not tolerate sound doctrine. Instead, to suit their own desires, they will gather around them a great number of teachers who say what their itching ears want to hear. Exactly. They will turn their ears away from the truth and truth aside to myth." Can anybody argue that that's not happening right now?
It's happening right now with him telling everybody he's going to give them free groceries and free food, and they're not going to have to pay for anything. He's just tickling the ears. That's all he's doing. And part of his campaign is that you're not going to have to pay for groceries. They're going to just give it to you.
Yeah. And Cindy brought up that same verse. So thank you to Jim and Cindy for both doing that research. A little hard for me to do research when I'm trying to run the comments here and talk at the same time. I'm just trying to. Tom has a point here. I want to maybe sum it up this way: the electorate hasn't been educated in proper voting, but they surely have been duped. Too many times I have had people ask me who I should vote for. Really? Yeah. I'm same here, Tom. I get people calling me or texting me every day asking who they should vote for instead of doing the research themselves. It's amazing. And I think all of what we're seeing just in today's election is a symptom of what we're talking about. Okay. So yeah, Tom says I need coffee. I did too. That's why I asked my wife to perk me a pot of coffee here because I knew I was going to need it to get through this podcast. So, wow. Thank you, Mary. Thank you to my wife. Thank you, my beautiful wife. She saved the day for me. That's not good. Fred and I took a drink at the same time, so we couldn't talk. So, what's Christy thinks the globalists are bringing Muslims into our government? It could be. Look at Great Britain. Mondami said as much last night. Yeah,
exactly.
So, yeah, Conley, Jim, the squad. Yeah, we thought when the squad first came on the scene, I think most of us looked at them as just a bunch of crackpots, which I still do, quite frankly. But unfortunately, there's a segment of our population that listens to these people.
Absolutely.
And I'll tell you what, it's just like the people that listen and go to The View for news. And I've got a family member that does that. So people have lost their ability for critical thinking, and which leads me to a point I was going to make on the globalists. It's the whole takeover of the education system. That's that long game I was talking about in my monologue there. The leftists, the globalists, they're playing a long game. They think decades ahead, right? And we think at best 1 year ahead. We're thinking about the midterms now. Well, they're thinking about what's going on in 2030 or something.
And all you got to do is look at Obama. How much time did he spend in elementary schools? You know why? Because he knew if he could win that generation, the rest of us don't matter.
Yeah. Well, it's the kids. I think Jim Conley in an earlier post or comment here said that a lot of young people were coming out to vote. All right. So I'm going to say this from a point of view of we have a very left-leaning college in our town here, Pitt Bradford. And I know there are a lot of left-leaning professors in there. So if all of the kids that 18 years ago was 2007. So kids that were born in 2007 are just getting to be voting age right now. How many of them have been indoctrinated by our educational system? And these young people that are coming in to vote right now, are they voting what they've been taught in school? So anyways, I put up Jim's comment there. Speaking of the Bible, as soon as I saw that, I figured it was worth looking. The Constitution, why we must emphasize it. Psalm 11:3, which reads, if the foundations be destroyed, what can the righteous do? Unless we speak Constitution and demand our representatives vote constitutionally, things will only get worse. Neither party offers a constitutional candidate. Well, I can't argue that. I have been after our own congressman on many occasions, G.T. Thompson. He has about a 50% career voting record of voting with the Constitution, which is pathetic. So yeah, I agree. So Martha,
bottom line is
this.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Bottom line is this. The Constitution is just a system that we're working to. The Bible should be our guideline, and the Holy Spirit should be our guiding tool to what we should be doing. But the world depends on AI.
Yeah. So here you go. Martha makes a good comment. Lazy Republicans stay at home. There was a lot of memes, Martha, and you may have seen them. A lot of memes going around that said Republicans that stay home and don't vote elect Democrats. That there's truth to that, and I think that's what we saw in this election, quite frankly. And Jim said we have people at the machines with their phones out, Googling every candidate to vote for. Well, that's kind of sad. I mean, it's good they might have looked, but what were they Googling? I mean, you can't do research in the 2 or 3 minutes that you're standing at the machine, or any meaningful research. You might be texting your friend and saying, hey, who did you vote for? Who should I vote for? But you can't do any that research had to be done ahead of time.
Right.
Oh, thank you for indulging me with my coffee again. Charlie, you're right. Pray. I spoke to a very dear friend of mine yesterday for quite a while. We had a nice conversation, and she said that, I mean, and I got to tell you, this person is a prayer warrior. I mean, she is, I can pray and I can talk to God, and this lady literally falls on her knees and cries out to the Lord. I have the deepest respect for her and her example for prayer. But she told me that we've this coming down to God. We have to pray. And prayer can move mountains, in her words, not mine. Prayer can move mountains. So absolutely. if we just look at the government and try to affect it from a secular point of view,
that's it.
Are we leaving half of our battle, behind?
We're leaving our armor behind. I mean, just look at Mark 3:24. If a kingdom is divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. That's biblical. Now, it doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, or Independent. You're still part of the division. That's our biggest problem. It's scripture, so we can keep looking at the Constitution. If we start ignoring godly principles, we're still going to fail.
Yep. And I gotta apologize ahead of time if you start hearing my voice start to go. I forgot to take my allergy med this morning, so my allergies are starting to kick in the high gear. So anyways, no excuse, just if you hear my voice start to go a little weird, that's why. So And again, we've got way off the notes here, but that's all right.
Yeah.
This is a good conversation. So let me ask you this. Because I hear, okay, this is one thing that disturbs me. I'll tell you right off the bat. I hear people, even in my circle of acquaintances, that claim, and I'm not going to pass judgment. I'll say, I won't say claim. I'll say they are Christians, but they also say they're progressives.
Yes.
And some of them even go as far as accepting the pro-choice position of progressivism. So let me ask you this: riddle me this, Batman. Are Christian conservatives or Republicans can they also be progressives, or are they incompatible? What do you think?
Some of
What's
them just
everybody
go
think
however,
online here?
some of them just go however the mood swings them. Like that particular, there's a pastor that has accepted the leftist side, even though he's a pastor, and he argues that the Bible doesn't actually declare that men can't sleep with men. It just says, it doesn't say they can't be married. And basically, he argues every point he possibly can to try to contradict the Bible.
Yeah. Kelly Morris. Kelly makes a good point here. I want to put this up here. I was just reading the people, especially the young people, that are voting in New York City, probably weren't even around in 2001.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what happened to the Twin Towers because we've quit talking about it, or the schools have purposely stopped telling the story. So they were not alive when it happened. They're not learning about it in school. So why wouldn't they vote for a charismatic Muslim, in his own words, socialist, that's promising them everything for free? Why wouldn't they? Good point, Kelly. Appreciate that. Let's see. To a representatives. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Speaking to our brief is pathetic because call them and write to them and get BS. Yeah. I've got to. I don't use this, Tom. I agree with you 100%, but I don't use this as a reason not to continue to write and call, because the frustrating thing, and I have had in the past, I've written about specific issues, and I get a form letter back that just says nothing more than, I appreciate you getting back to me. Rest assured that we're blah, 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 fighting for your right, blah, blah, blah. It's a form letter.
Right.
One of their staffers sent it back, and they didn't, and I'm sure the elected official didn't even see it. So,
Well, it's
Tom,
getting even better now. It's getting better now. Companies now have AI response for things that you send into them. Like, you'll send into something asking a question, and you're going to get an AI response. It's not even going to be a real person nowadays because they don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. Well, Jim, yeah, I agree with you. I just wanted to post this here. I saw where Trump endorsed Cuomo. I can't speak to why he did that.
Mm-hmm.
Cuomo is running as an independent, obviously, but we all know he's a Democrat, and
Right.
and he's a corrupt Democrat at that. But I think it comes down to the point that the Republican running had no freaking chance whatsoever. No chance at all. He wasn't even in the game. So, maybe he was hoping to keep Mondomny out of there. So,
and what blows my mind is everybody's using Trump as their measuring rod. Why?
Yeah, I agree with
Why
that.
is Trump the measuring rod to everything that's being done? How about you doing your own research, praying a little, and getting an answer from God?
Yeah. I've said this even after he got elected, and my wife and I talked about this morning, and that's why I brought up, if people are looking at Trump as being the savior and the white knight, riding in on his horse, they're deluding themselves.
And
Because
somebody
it's
said
just,
this to me recently. Well, Trump's supposed to be a Christian. He used the F-bomb on TV. Well, Trump even said that he didn't think he was a Christian.
yeah.
He said it out loud. But at the same time, who's to say that Trump can't change his heart can be changed and he can become a Christian?
Yeah. First of all, Tom, yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Fred. Tom, thank you for the kind words there. We do our best in this podcast. Christy makes a good point here, and this is what's so disturbing about those judges being retained and what's going on in Jim M. I know you're not a Republican Democrat point of view, but this disturbs me as well. Because I've been writing on these things, I think there's about 4 or 5 bills going through the House right now that are trying to legalize, even to the point of putting it in our Pennsylvania Constitution, trying to legalize abortion right up until the millisecond of birth. As that baby is passing through the birth canal, if these things go through, they can kill that baby. I'll tell you what, I don't think there's a single issue that I am more involved with in politics than the right to life of the unborn. To say I'm a pro-life person is an understatement. And if anybody sees my comments and my posts on social media, you'll know that that's true. But this is what is going on in our state right now. And I'll tell you what, if now that these Democrat judges are retained on the 2 lower courts and the Supreme Court, if these things are challenged in court, it's just going to be like rubber stamping what Tom Wolf did. If these things pass and they legalize abortion up to birth, you can bet your bottom dollar that those radical leftist judges are going to push it through. They're not going to overturn it.
And it's not much longer before they legalize pedophilia. Trust me, it's coming.
Yeah. Or like Canada, euthanasia. Did you know? Yeah. I'm getting way off topic, but as long as you brought that up, did you know in Canada, a doctor, I don't know if it's mandated or they're just doing it on their own, but in Canada, a doctor offers patients, and it's not even terminally ill patients. It could be just somebody that is being treated for depression.
Right.
They have to offer them euthanasia as
an option,
a medical option.
Yep.
What the hell? Come on.
They were talking about this on Family Life too. You can get that option in Canada. You can just take yourself out if you want to.
Yeah. Mick pointed out that it goes to that comment about him endorsing Cuomo. Trump said he'd rather have a bad Democrat than a communist. I can't argue with that. But I wouldn't want to have either. But in sometimes we, because we're not in New York City, we don't worry about these things, or we don't concern ourselves. Because we're not in Great Britain, we don't concern ourselves with the fact that they're forcing digital ID. Because we're not in Nigeria, we don't concern ourselves with the fact that Christians are being eliminated in that country. It's a genocide. It's ethnic cleansing. But I'll tell you what, if we don't get involved, if we don't pay attention to that, if we don't see the signs of what's happening and act on them, it's going to come here eventually.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to come here. Think of it right now in a very minimal way. You can't compare this to Nigeria, but in this country, school districts fall all over themselves to allow Muslims their 5 times a day to pray,
right?
Or they stop people from eating certain, in other words, they turn away certain foods in the cafeterias because they're offensive to Muslims, but
Right.
yet they don't afford the same courtesy to Christians.
Nope.
They don't allow Bibles, or Bible studies in school. Oh, it's got to be separation of church and state, unless you're a Muslim, of course.
Right.
So, all right, I'll get.
They
off
don't
my
even allow
soapbox.
Christianity as a subject in college, but they will allow Islam as a subject, Islam as a subject in school. It's actually allowed there.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just reading this
And
comment from Jim here.
I try to tell people, there's people out there. I mean, you would think that every Christian would not be a pro-life, but I know a guy that's got a master's degree in theology. He's been in his church his whole life, but he's a pastor today that still has no problem with abortion.
Yeah,
I don't think he's on the right team, but
yeah. Jim made a comment about 9/11, about the thing with Syria, and they put a terrorist in as president, and the U.S. backed it and all that. I can't. I'll show it, but we've talked about this on the show, Jim. You've said it before. I don't know. The only euphemism I'll use on that is politics make strange bedfellows. Okay. We don't know what's going on. I certainly don't condone the United States getting in bed with known terrorists, or but we've seen it. It's not just in Trump's era. This goes back to
Obama.
Bush 1, goes back to Clinton. The people that were your enemies last year are now your friends, and maybe because they're fighting your other enemies. So what does that mean? The enemy of your enemy becomes your friend. Isn't that the same?
We traded a basketball player for a known terrorist here in America during the Biden era. A terrorist, a known terrorist, a bomb specialist. We traded him for a basketball player who broke the law.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense, does it?
No.
I'm still reading some of the comments here. Diane agreed. She says she thinks every true Christian is pro-life. Yeah, I would say that too. And quite frankly, I'll go right here on record. If you support the baby killing movement in this country, you are not a true Christian. I agree. I don't care. I'll say it right here. You can call me whatever name you want to call me, but that's the way I feel about it.
I'll second that motion.
All right. Oh, let's see here. Shapiro, Christy Shapiro finally went to work. Yeah, he's been on a presidential campaign tour. Christy, he wants to be reelected governor, but he's got his eye on the presidency in 2028. And so this, just so you'll know, Shapiro's bid for the 2026 gubernatorial, to get reelected, is not anything about Pennsylvania, because quite frankly, if he loses the governor's race next year, it's going to kill his chances for the presidential nomination. However, if he wins decisively in Pennsylvania next year, that's going to put him as a front runner for the Democratic ticket in 2028.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see what the rest of the comments, because I go back. I got my notes on this other screen here, and I haven't even went back to them. But I love your comments on here. That's why I'm focusing on those today. Let's see here. Tom made another comment here. Charlie, Charlie keeps bringing up prayer. And I can't argue with that. But let's just take a look at this. Like I say, this is just Pennsylvania. It's not, what happened in McKean County, because I'll mention right here before we stop. McKean County had a vote for studying the home rule, and this was a very divisive question on our ballot, but evidently it succeeded by the narrowest of margins. I think it was 901 to 915 or something like that in favor of forming a commission to study other forms of government. So that's all I'll say about the local scene here. We could spend a whole show on just Bradford politics, but that wouldn't be fair to the rest of the audience here that's not in Bradford.
Right.
But let's take a look at what happened to the rest of some of our big, what we would call high profile elections. Of course, we've been talking about Mondomny all morning, but in Virginia, I thought Republicans had a good shot in there, but it looks like the Dems won there. New Jersey, they were making a big push, and the Republican came within points of taking that. But again, the New Jersey governor, Mickey Sherrill, I guess her name is, Prop 50 in California passed. And that was a bill on redistricting, which basically, if it goes the way it's projected to go through, it'll put 5 more Democratic seats in the House of Representatives. Pennsylvania Supreme Court, we talked about that. All 3 judges were retained. And I'll tell you what, at least in McKean County, I thought we did a good job of trying to educate people on that. But even in McKean County, it fell short. More people voted to retain. And I think that goes back to, Fred, you mentioned it, and other people on the made comments on it. People went to the polls not understanding what the hell they were going to be asked about, not understanding what retention meant, or went in with the idea that since I didn't bother to investigate anything about these judges, then I'm thinking, geez, they've been in for 10 years. Why just not keep them in?
Right.
Because I don't know what they did their first 10 years. So why should I give a crap about what they're going to do for their next 10 years? Because I'm not going to pay attention to that either. So I think that's kind of the attitude that a lot of people did. In Virginia as well, they elected a Democrat attorney general and a lieutenant governor. So to me, Virginia went completely blue on this election here. So, yeah, the other thing too, Fran, I don't know if Soros paid for it, but yeah, there was a lot more signs, I think, in McKean County on the vote yes than there were on the vote no on retention. And I'll tell you what, I think our county chairperson, Ken Kane, came back with a handful of signs from a state committee meeting about vote no. Our own McKean County Republican committee paid for, out of our own treasury, the money to print up, I think, 250 signs to get out into the McKean County area. But you compare that to some of the 4x4 signs I saw in Smithport, what your friend was talking about, the billboard. That's why I'm saying we got our asses handed to us, and if we don't learn from this and do things differently, then it's we're doomed as a conservative republic, as a Republican Party. Okay, that's all I can say about it. So, Charlie, what do you got to say here? See if people applying for benefits if they need them, because that's the system we're in, but can't see voting for people who support a welfare state. Yeah, well, it's just like I say, Mondavi promised free shit for everybody.
That's what he did.
I'm going to quote Margaret Thatcher back in the Reagan era. Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister of England, Great Britain. She said the problem with socialism is eventually we run out of other people's money. And we've got our own socialist in Bradford, some guy named Alex, what was Alex Casper. And I had to chuckle at a post he made on Facebook today that he's bringing socialism to Bradford. Okay. Well, Alex, I don't think you're listening to this podcast, but if I see you in person, I'm going to tell you that same thing. Socialism doesn't work because eventually we run out of other people's money. So let me see. We're already past 10 o'clock, but I want to look at some of these other comments here. Let's see here. Unless they asked around and got a flyer, they had no idea what to judge return. Yeah, I'll tell you what. I can't tell you, Martha, how many times I had to explain what was going on because people didn't understand it. They did. What do you mean this vote no thing? These people are already judges, and I had to explain what retention was and that how they don't have to run for re-election, but after a 10-year term they have to be voted to retain. So, yeah. Tom about. Let's see what he says about the Virginia going to shoot the whole white guy, then his family. I'll tell you what, the only thing I can say, and, it's funny, it's 10 o'clock. We spent an hour talking about this. I never did get into my notes on the topics we were going to talk about, which was Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, and how the globalists are trying to take over. But, that's all right. This was a good show because it talked about what was just happening in our election today. But these cities and states that voted for these socialist and I'll call them communists because all socialism is like putting lipstick on a pig. Socialism is just a pretty name for communism. Socialism puts you in a cage by choice, and communism puts you in a cage at gunpoint. That's all. That's the only difference. Okay. Mm-hmm. And quite frankly, if you want to think about it, and Jim kind of alludes to this in his comment there, we've been a socialist country for decades. If you look at all, and most of this is unconstitutional, by the way, according to the 10th Amendment. But if you look at all the free programs where we give out money and food stamps and everything else, that's socialism. And he's right. We've been a socialist country since probably Woodrow Wilson. He introduced it. Roosevelt supercharged it, and Johnson brought it home. We have been a socialist country. And quite frankly, before that, all that charity work was done by the local community, the local churches, and not the government.
Right.
And doesn't that speak then to what's happening at the local church level? Mm-hmm. Think about, Fred, you're in Bradford here. Think about the number of churches, and I can think of 2 or 3 that have the Catholic Church. They used to have 4 churches within 10 miles of each other. Mm-hmm. We had the church in Lewis Run. We had another one in Bradford, and we had one in Limestone, New York. So within a 10-mile radius, we had 4 Catholic churches. Now we have 1, St. Bernard's. They've all combined into St. Bernard's. Same thing with the Methodist Church. 2 or 3 Methodist churches kind of collapsed, and they have coalesced into 1 Methodist church. The numbers are going down. So if we don't have a church community anymore, if we don't have a community of faith, how are we going to be able to help the less fortunate? And then also, doesn't it make it easier to just say, oh, the government will do it?
Right. That's true. That's exactly what I think that a lot of the Democratic fire comes from sympathy. They find the most sympathetic situation that they could possibly find, and they feed it down everybody like, look how nasty these people are when they should be giving everything to these people, trying to make us look like we're mean, we're rude. But sympathy is the trick. That's what they use. They get any story that they can find that they can get people to be sympathetic to that story to get their movement through.
Yeah. Hey, it's I don't want to cut this short. It's 6 minutes after 10. Any final comments, Fred, you want to make on our discussion today? I'll give you the last bit because I tend to do most of the talking here. I apologize.
Yeah, I think the bottom line is until we put God where he's supposed to be in our nation, we're going to fall.
Yep. And you just echoed what Jim just said here. Once God was removed, government became God. And I'll even go one step further. The people made themselves God. Right. And maybe that goes along with making government, because if I've been indoctrinated to believe that I only do what makes me feel good because I'm the most important thing in the world, I made myself God. I've put myself above. So, yeah. So that really does lend itself to what you were saying there. And I'll show Tom's last comment here. Yeah, I'm wondering how many pastors are preaching just what feels good, tickling the ears. I don't know. So AI, Jim says AI is the new God, the sum of all human knowledge. Well, 100%. It's getting that way.
I've been saying maybe that for a long time.
And I'll tell you what, let me, I can't put it up on the screen. I was going to try to put it up on the screen, but I'm going to scroll down to the end of my notes, and I'm going to close our podcast on this, because I think this is what it comes down to. 2 Chronicles 7:14. If my people who are called by my name, and that means doesn't have to be everybody, it's the believers. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. That's a promise from God. He will heal our land. We are a country that was founded, even though people argue about this, we were founded on Christian principles. We were founded by Christian men. And if you look at the Constitution, even I think it was, I can't remember if it was John Adams or who, but said the Constitution was made only for a moral people. Exactly. And if you're not a moral people, it has nothing at all. So with that said, let's close out today. Wherever you are listening to this, whether you're on with us live, we had a good group on with us today. The comments were out of this world. Thank you so much for engaging in this, because this is really what makes this podcast what it is, because you all engage in it and share your thoughts. So thank you so much for that. But wherever you are in the world today, if you're hearing our voice, thank you for being here with us. Join us next week. We will have as a matter of fact, we're going to have a person on as a guest. His name is Alex Kochman. He is he's a mission. He'll be talking about faith and missions and so on and so forth. So join us next week. Tell you more online about what he's going to be talking about. But for today, we want you to be blessed.
And be a blessing to others.
So thanks, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see you next week. All right. Bye.